So it's just expressing our gratitude, our food, our water, the air that we breathe. And with that, we turn it over to our elder, Auntie Julia Bogany.
Good evening. Praise and gratitude to the sacred waters of the world, to the oceans, the mother of life, the womb of the plant life that freshens our air with oxygen, the brew that, that is stirred by the sunlight and the moon's gravity into the great currents and tides that move across the earth, circulating the means of life, bringing warmth to the frozen Arctic and cool, fresh winds to the tropics. We give thanks for the blessed and clouds and the rain that brings the gift of life to the land, that eases the thirst of the roots that grow the trees and sustains life, even in the dry desert. We give thanks for the springs that bring life-giving water up from the ground, for the small streams and creeks, for the mighty rivers. We praise the beauty of water, the sparkle of the sunlight on a blue lake, the shimmer of the moonlight on the ocean waves, the white spray of the waterfall. We take delight in the sweet singing of the dancing streams and the roars of the river in floods. We ask help to know within ourselves all the powers of water, to wear down and to build up, to ebb and to flow, to nurture and to destroy, to merge and to separate. We know that water has great powers of healing and cleansing. And we also know the water is vulnerable to the contamination and the pollution. We ask help in our work as healers in our efforts to ensure that the waters would run clean, run free, that all the earth's children have the water they need to sustain an abundance of life. Blessed be the waters. So I was saying, I think several times today, I mentioned the fact that, and until we acknowledge as a people, not only as Tongva people, but as people that are living on this earth, to that the earth is life, the water is life, the plants are life, the animals, air, and we are the humans that are destroying the life that is made for us, to keep us and to unite us. We can't stop the waters from flowing. We can damage them, but we can't stop them. Just like the blood in our veins goes wherever it needs to, the waters will go on wherever they need to. And we heard they can destroy and they can heal. It's our choice what we want the waters to do. So I'm hoping that through this we continue to do the best for the water that we can in our own ways. And it doesn't take a people, it takes all people that are living here.
Thank you, Julia.
Sharing with you one of our water ceremonies as well. And it's important to know that all of us have different ways of praying. And so there's not just one way to do a water ceremony, but we do what we were taught, and we do what the ancestors guide us to do. So for us, we do not do ceremony on camera. And we were asked to do a water ceremony by the IIYC, the International Indigenous Youth Council. And so what I told them we would do is we would do a ceremony and we would take a few pictures, but we couldn't actually do the ceremony on camera. So I will show you what we put together, where we were, And you'll see a little bit about how we bless the water, we pray over the water, and we acknowledge the water. The water is life. Pare e o harin ha, it's our life.
Pare, pare, eyo hinkin pare, awish koneha, awish koneha. Pare, pare, eoharin pare, awish koneha, awish koneha. Pare, thank you, sacred relative. You are life. What we do to the waters, we do to ourselves. We are mostly water. As we pray for the health of the water, we pray for ourselves. Let all life be nurturing, healthy, and balanced. By unlearning the selfish ways and relearning our first instructions, we remember what it is to treat all with love, compassion, and respect. It starts with me. I open my heart. Let me lead by example. Ancestors, we thank you for the teachings of reciprocity. Ancient ones, we look to you for guidance. We want to do good in this world. Help us to walk softly. Help us to speak gently. Help us to give unselfishly. Help us to love ourselves unconditionally, which in turn will help us to treat all with respect. In the circle of life which we've come to experience fully, we know that we are all related. From the soil to the stars and everything in between, we are creation. We are creator.
Thank you, Richard. So we missed a little water ceremony, and for us, we like to do our ceremonies over moving water. Some people, especially from the South, actually will bottle the water from a source and then do their ceremony that way. But because the water does have a spirit and the water does continually flow the way that it needs to, it's important for us to pray where the water is moving.
Whether we're talking about fresh water or seawater, there's life inside of both waters and there's spirit within both waters, and it's really important for us as, simple people, human beings, to stop trying to contain nature, to stop trying to recreate nature. I will share real quick that today it was announced that they will be shutting down, was it 4 dams on the Klamath River? And that is huge, huge, because once those dams went up, what ended up happening was the life in those waters died out. Our salmon, they were gone. Our trout, they were gone, and so on and so on. It affected life in the rivers, which then affected our life as indigenous peoples, right? And so the fact that people are finally starting to kind of get a clue as how much damage has been done because of the ideas of damming and control, it's a huge thing, and we still have a long ways to go. So I do bring that up, you know, to hopefully put on a light bulb in your guys' head to remind us how important it is to let nature do its thing. And so where I was going to go with it is how so many people are complaining about how our rivers are going into the ocean like it's a bad thing, but that's a natural process that has always been. The water does go into the ocean, but then it goes into the clouds, and then it comes back, and then it comes back down into drinkable water. And that's a natural process that man could never recreate. And right now we're actually talking in talks about taking the seawater and desalinizing it to give it to us. And it's just, we are nature, but we are not in control of nature. And we need to understand that there's such a beautiful process and we are a part of it. But way too often we try to put ourselves above it and say we're greater than all. And in reality, you know, no disrespect to any of you, but I'll point the finger at myself when I say we are the dumbest creatures on earth. And I'm sure you guys heard me say that last time, but we are the dumbest creatures on earth. And reason being is because we're always trying to recreate and make everything better instead of just hanging out and enjoying what is and helping nature, but not forcing nature, you know, and understanding how we can live in reciprocity within nature, how we can be better stewards of the land and understand that I am equal to the mint that grows outside my door. I am equal to the cactus in my backyard. I am equal to the water, and I understand that I am so much water and I cannot live without water. And knowing that I have energy source within me, as does the raging water, I need the raging water to help my energy be alive and well, instead of the contained water bottle that has chemical in it that has completely killed off the spirit of that water, right? And as us dumb human beings, we don't even tend to understand that. So we go to the store and we buy our sparklets, who are actually stealing water from the indigenous peoples, and try to drink it, hoping that it's going to help us survive. And it does only minimally, but the spirit within that water is completely dead. So we need to do better as people, you know, as probably the dumbest beings on earth. We need to start remembering by watching the animals and what they do. They're not poisoning the waters. We are. You know, well, the cows are, but because cows, you know.
It's what they're being fed.
But I mean, the native animals of these lands, right? The deer, the bear, the bunnies, they're some of the most intelligent beings that we could ever have as teachers. And so we need to remember how we first learned how to survive on Earth. And that was the animals and not the other way around. And that's what I'll say.
So, and I want to thank all of you, you know, with the Sierra Club. I know how hard you all work to try to do better for our Earth Mother, for the waters, for the plant relatives and the animal relatives. So I do want to thank you for all that you all do. And if you, you know, just, if you could just stand with us and take it a step further, we need to take this concrete out. We lived along the LA River. That was our life source, our blood source. We lived along the Santa Ana River. Those were so important to us. And here, you know, like she was saying, we're trying to control it. We're trying to maneuver it. And if you ever go to, I always forget the name of it, La Placita.
Yeah.
Alvera Street. I always forget that word. It's like a block, and probably for a good reason, right, Auntie? But if you ever go there and you see the vendors right down in the middle, and you see that there's concrete on each side and there's bricks in the middle, but it's always wet. because that river used to run through there, and it has a spirit and it has a memory, and it is trying to do what it's supposed to do. So we need to stop trying to control, and we need to give the love that it gives to us. So I think we're probably about done if you guys have any questions.
Thank you very much. That was wonderful. And if people have questions, again, you can put them on chat and we'll address them at the end of the meeting.
So this is a map of the Tonga villages throughout the whole LA basin. And this is thanks to Julia Bogany's website. I took the liberty of transferring here for tonight. And if you follow the coastline there on the upper left-hand side around, you'll see a fish there, and it has some red dots, purple dots, and a red name, Sa'angna. That whole area is the Baiona wetlands, and where the LA River, as well as the Baiona Creek and the Centinela Creek, came through for thousands of years. These are 4 periods of archaeological maps of the progression of closure of the Baiona wetlands. That is the change that happened over 8,000 years. These were done after studies with core samples and the archaeological operations that happened during the Playa Vista development. So this was published in several of their archaeological abstracts. So what you have here is the Milling Stone period in, I'll say, roughly 8,000 before present, and then moving through down to the proto-historic, which is the 1500 to 1700 mission period. What you see is, and I'll quote here, the lagoon evolution was driven primarily by sediment infilling rather than by sea level transgression or regression. Baiona Creek and the Los Angeles River were more important drivers of the system in terms of fresh water and sediment that contributed to the lagoon and the estuary. As for settlement history, many were located on the bluff, on alluvial plains, the fans along the base of the bluffs, and in or around marsh deposits in the wetlands. The earliest ones, as you see, date to Milling Stone period, 8,500 before present. There are no paleocoastal sites, that is earlier sites than 8,000. They have not been identified in the Baiona as they have been elsewhere. In all likelihood, these sites concentrated along the coast are submerged below sea level or buried in alluvial and estuarine deposits. Not to say that they aren't there, they're buried. This is a T-sheet map from the 1920s. It's similar to the one that John Tommy uses that you'll see in his video, which shows in the 20s, the location of waters and flows, of course, always changing seasonally. The shoreline, important to see that it's primarily closed off except for a spit way down at the bottom of where the Centinela Creek followed the bluff line and emptied directly into the ocean right there and had its own little estuary. But also you can see here at the map, Baiona Creek is way to the east, and it empties. Let's see if you can get the cursor there. I'm not sure, but it's way on the east side of the wetlands. You'll see Baiona Creek. I don't know if you can measure that, but at any rate, it doesn't flow, of course, to the ocean. It never did for thousands of years. And along with the LA River, it produced the marshlands, the wetlands, and a mixture of biodiversity and so on that was so rich there for so long. This is Baiona Creek now, as we see it today. It cuts through directly to the wetlands. Of course, it's channelized concrete. And you can see the beach and the shoreline, which is sandy and mainly closed off, except for, some tidal action. But note also the salt pan in the distance, which is the result of hundreds, thousands of years of water that then dissipate or evaporates and produces layers and layers of salt there. Here you see a schematic rendering we've made of what the CDFW plan would actually look like. They try to, present it in a very lovely, idyllic picture. But here you see that the levees would be 20 feet high and 200 feet tapering outward, 200 feet wide, surrounding the entire area, and 30 to 40 foot berms toward the Lincoln area that would bury habitat by digging up acres of wetlands and redistributing the soils. By this process, both known and undiscovered ancient indigenous settlements, encampments, and burials would surely be destroyed in this enormous scale alteration of the wetlands in ways it never was historically for thousands of years. Daily saltwater inundation from the ocean would mix with highly polluted waters, as we know now, from the Ballona Creek. The present channelized levees would be removed west of Lincoln. As you can see, the Culver City, the Culver Boulevard in Lincoln there. Those levees that are now channelized would be removed west of Lincoln and replaced by the earthen levees, and then open up, allowing full tidal inflow from the ocean, creating what one might rightly call a flood basin. And the historic indigenous sacred site of Sa'angna would no longer be recognizable. John Tommy presented this separately in the Coastal Commission, to the Coastal Commission in 2019 with Patricia McPherson, showing one of the ways Playa Vista is diverting fresh water from the freshwater marsh by 2 unpermitted drains, sending the water directly into the Ballona Creek. There are other ways Playa Vista is also draining off the underground fresh water as well. They need to pump water from below the Playa Vista development to keep the water table low because of their methane gas mitigation system. Water from the old Howard Hughes site is also being pumped out by Playa Vista. And these waters are sent out directly to the Hyperion water treatment plant. None of it goes back into the Ballona wetlands. John Tommy also points out here, if you read down below, that the math calculations by the engineers for the EIR plan of the future flows within the Ballona Creek are wrong. The Army Corps also agrees that the calculations are wrong and the figures must be recalculated before coming up for a final review, which is ongoing now. This is a color schematic drawing using John Tommy's calculations on how much fresh water is presently thrown away on a daily basis by Playa Vista operations. He has calculated that Playa Vista development wastes 950,000 gallons of natural fresh water per day. And the drawing shows how much area would be covered, hypothetically, assuming 1/2 inch of water is spread throughout the wetlands on a daily basis. That's how much it would cover. I inserted this slide as a reminder for us to think about the underlying aquifers and groundwater beneath Ballona. This is a hydrogeologic cross-section of Ballona wetlands put out by the Department of Water Resources based on the studies by the Poland report in 1961 when the marina was created and modified in 1998, it says here. No more recent hydrology studies have been done on the entire area, only on the Ballona Channel and the water flows that would happen there. Here you see the level of Pacific Ocean way at the top there, the Ballona Creek at the top, level, Ballona aquifers, and the Silverado aquifer below that, which is a major drinking water source for the Los Angeles area. Remembering the diversion of fresh water that we talked about before, continuously happening both by Playa Vista and don't forget SoCal gas operations, which uses an enormous amount of water. Some important questions arise about subsidence issues, saltwater intrusion into Ballona aquifers, what happens to the Silverado aquifers, and wouldn't digging the area out lower only allow more saltwater intrusion into aquifers in the future with sea level rise. This is a statement by Chief Anthony Morales of the Tongva San Gabriel Band of Mission Indians to the Coastal Commission last August in 2020. He supports the video documentation, which you will see coming up. Also regarding the illegal drains mentioned earlier, here he states that the Ballona wetlands has been certified as a sacred site, registered by John Tommy Rosas as a most likely descendant. Morales also states he has been authorized by the state and federal government to represent the Native American issues regarding the Ballona wetlands region and would avail himself and his son as a monitor for any activities regarding the abandonment of those drains. The Coastal Commission decided to cap the drains and not remove them. So they're presently capped. And finally, I'd like to introduce the next part of the presentation this evening, a condensed version, a 10-minute version of video of John Tommy's insights, calculations, and drawings, and ideas regarding the proof that Ballona is a predominantly freshwater seasonal wetland.
1923 and actually before, about 1906 to 1909 and then 1920, they had various lawsuits and cases, so this got realigned and different things happened, but on this USGS map, what's important is the federal government determined that the channel should run and stop here, and this is their mark there for fresh water that comes down is let go into the freshwater wetlands that was already existing. It did not go through like it does now into the marina. See, now it goes, and then the high and low tides come up it. Before, see the difference right here? Right at area A, right here, you can see that creek line. And so the original Ballona Creek was here, then they channeled it, but they still dumped the fresh water here. They did not mix it or inundate this with more salt water like they want to do in alternative 1, 2, and 3. This is about fresh water. So they want to rip all this out and then have that be salt water treated, and it was never like that. And what's important about this video and what I'm explaining is that it shows that this was fresh water before, but it was made purposely fresh water restored again by the freshwater restoration of the channel. So they can't say that they're restoring anything. If they're going to restore it, it should be to this alignment and this source of water, which we can get from Playa Vista's freshwater right here. In the EIS, we have to go for the freshwater alternative. The Army Corps made this determination, so they can't get permits to tear in the 408 scheme they made with the county and the 404 with the Fish and Wildlife and the BWER here to change it into salt water. It's just fraud. This green area is all going to be in salt water because we know the tides go up to 10 feet. On that, it's quite a bit of material, 6 to 9 million cubic yards of materials. This is all fresh water here. Centinela Creek's right here. Water went this way, went this way. You know, it mingled and created, that's the estuary mingled there. But this area A part, you know, it's fresh water. I'm going to show you what was not shown by the Santa Monica Bay Restoration Commission, Bay Foundation, the Coastal Conservancy. They used the T-sheets for their agenda, but they didn't show what I'm going to show you. This is the original. The ones that were added by a research team that made it more accurate, but those were not used if it didn't help the conservancy and the bulldozing, saltwater inundation. When you look at this, here is the Ballona Creek and another stream, just to give you some bearing. And it shows this open water section, and the green is vegetated wetland. The information wasn't used properly or accurately, and it was only used by the Coastal Conservancy and them and Bay Foundation to shore up their agenda. I think it was a flat with just fresh water that would hold like a pond. You see where this is fresh water. It doesn't add up that this would be tidal, nor does this, because here's the fresh water from the creek. I think the fresh water was actually coming down that way. It was intertidal, but it wasn't tidally influenced. So I think they've got it labeled wrong. But when you look at it that way, it still doesn't justify what they're saying with this being open water. And here, having the rest of it be vegetated wetland, it's not supported by the conclusions of salt water. I'm hoping that you folks look at this, you'll see what we're looking at and the reasons why it should be left as a freshwater alternative, not bulldozed, not saltwater inundated, and have this be a feature of restoration like I put in my video. I think we can have a pump station here where this dumps into the Bogany Creek channel and then have the water cleaned up so it's usable and more natural, and then redistribute it appropriately in these areas. A lot of the reports that were done for the Bogany Wetlands Ecological Reserve EIS and EIR didn't have these details, and they didn't use the coloring. So that's why I thought it was important to do this. The freshwater alternative that I came up with, which is the blue and the green arrangement that would work there with one pipeline. This is the pipeline. We would have a pump station running through a Driscoll line, probably about a 4-inch diameter line, and it would run all the way through and have sprinklers and rainbird larger sprinklers, so it pretty much cover all the area. This graphic is the trees on area A. You can see the water coming from the freshwater. The pipeline would go through there and then feed all this, like I explained. And all these palms and all the cleanup from SoCal Gas would have to happen to get their and Sempre to get their oil infrastructure out and cleaned up. I'm just kind of flying around and showing you the kind of how it would look in different places. What kind of looked before and what it looks like, what it looked like after we got the fresh water in there. It's a huge difference. But it would be a big increase in habitat and then of course the animals and all that. And that would be the best way to restore that area A. And it also can include parts of B. But for them to use this and have the artist draw this in a deceptive manner, show their pattern and behavior, just expressing my opinion. You folks can look at the information and decide for yourself. This is only the view blockage of the levee that they don't have any graphics on, so I've made these as I put here. And that applies to all of it that I'm showing you. This way is the Fiji Way, so the open space will be locked. This is on Fiji Way, right near the end, 20 feet right here. So you will not see from Fiji Way the wetlands anymore either. Jefferson and where it hits Culver, that view will be gone forever. It's First Amendment protection for flight risk. This is a violation of Coastal Act. They can't obstruct views in the coastal zone. So you will not see the wetlands anymore. We should have a freshwater alternative, which we're working on here. So these lines right here are the levees, and they're cutting out the existing channel from here all the way to here. So you will not see the wetlands anymore. These levees are 25 to 30 feet above the road. This is a grading plan for alternative 1. The main grading is going to be in area A, which is across here. That's where the channel would be now, and then all that material from Lincoln to Fiji Way all the way around basically around the south end of the marina. And then they're going to carve out and excavate and apparently remount it. They're going to leave SoCal Gas's thing here for some reason. Me personally, that was a Mary Small and some other people at a meeting about almost 9 years ago, that they were planning on selling the dirt to the port, so the port could build larger shipberths in San Pedro Bay. They use steel, Chugman steel, corrugated, and then they pump out the water and they fill it with dirt and they create a big shipberth. They've done those before. They're basically artificial islands. But I have plans that show their haul routes and how they're going to barge it down the channel and then tugboat it to San Pedro and the port of LA. But because that's the only way they would get that much dirt. The report's calculations are just under 3 million cubic yards. So a cubic yard is a yard cubed. If you picture that much material, they're talking about 3 million of those. And basically, that's a square mile, 10 feet tall of dirt, if you want to do your own math.
Julia, would you like to offer the prayer?
Dear Creator, we thank you for this evening and for each and every person here and their families represented. We ask you to be with us as we try to work and show us the vision of what we're supposed to be doing, and let us just try to do this work together, united. Thank you that we don't have to travel, and thank you for just being with us throughout the day and this evening.
And then we'll close it out with a song. Tehovet aumen honuk vetam. 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 Tu me komi ketai me paime. 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 Tehovet aumen honuk vetam. 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 Tu me komi ketai me paime. 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 Tehovet aumen honuk vetam.
Thank you so much.
I have a question, Tina and Jessa. Your song, could you let us know what your song was saying?
It's like a good evening song, and it also represents and acknowledges the ancestors and the four directions, the ancestors of the four directions.
Okay.
So if we sing it in the daytime, we say Tehovet Tamet, which is good day. And tonight we said Tehovet Aumet, which is good evening.
Okay. Last time we met, you were talking, Jessa, you were talking about not being able to have access to medicinal plants and wildlife within the Ballona Wetlands Ecological Reserve. And I was wondering if you could tell us how does that work? Because it would seem to me that it would be possible for natives to be able to have access to harvest and forage for their traditional plants and to have access to the sacred lands and sacred sites. What could you tell us what the status of that is? And do you envision any way of obtaining access on a regular basis? It would seem to me that you would have some privileges to be able to do that.
First of all, I want Auntie Julia and my mom to speak, on this too, but we are not federally recognized natives, and that holds so much back from us being able to do things. Secondly, even if we were federally recognized natives, we'd still be fighting because there's so many laws, rules, and regulations that have been put on us since the beginning of the first invasion. Mm-hmm. And so these rules and laws and everything that they're doing to supposedly protect wildlife and protect this and that, and we shouldn't be included in it because we are a part of that native, original, everything that's been here. But because of the fact that we're not federally recognized natives, that holds us back greatly on attaining those natural rights. But nowadays, with the fish and game and things like that, it is possible for us to try to figure out how we can attain permits. But it's pretty damaging what they have done to us. So people in fish and game, Cal Fires, these type of people, they don't respect us. So it's a lot of work.
I see. Thank you.
Auntie Julia, do you want to add to that?
So I have a permit to gather in a forestry, but it's only like you can take a bag, just a small bag full, right? I can't say, well, Jessica couldn't say she was bringing me a bag because I can't go gather, or she's going to go gather and bring her mom a bag, because that wouldn't work. You can only have that one. It depends how we're using it, right? If it's something edible, you're not going to have enough to feed 3 families with one bag. Mm-hmm. Right.
So, and I'll just add that the permits that we're able to get, like Julia said, it only applies to the forestry. It doesn't apply to other lands. And we have to apply for that permit every single year. It's not like you're Tongva, you can have this for your life. Mm-hmm. We have to keep asking. So I refuse. I'm not going to ask them permission to harvest on my own lands. So what we have done is we have relations with conservancies where we're allowed to go and harvest on our own lands with their permission anytime we want, because I'm not going to ask permission. We've been here from time immemorial, and we shouldn't have to put a number on it. That I do have much respect for those that do work with the local tribes. I know that Yosemite is one that has utilized the knowledge, and shared the knowledge. I think the federal places it's good because they're protected, but it's bad because I don't think we should have to pay to get into these sites. And so unless we have a relationship like we do in Yosemite, we can let them know we're here to see Lucy and we can get in without paying. But for the most part, they want to charge everybody. And so I have never paid. Also, we go up to Sundance in North Dakota, and we go through the Black Hills and lay our prayers down, and we have never paid to get in there, but they try to charge.
I'd be really interested to have a conversation one day about the different plants that would be found in Baiona and how they relate to the Tonga culture and how they're used. And I feel as if this is a door opening where we can continue to have a relationship with you as an alternative to protect and preserve the seasonal freshwater wetlands would be to incorporate the indigenous native peoples into that process, so that when we're talking about access, that access would be part of that plan, that we're not just focusing on the not bulldozing, we're not just focusing on the gas issues or the water quality issues, hydrology issues, but that we are incorporating your voices into part of that process. know to the degree that that's how we would do that, but it would be interesting to begin to explore that. And I hope that we have the opportunity to do that at some point. Really have appreciated having you here, and we know that there's so much more for us to learn, and we would love to have you come back and visit us. So thank you.
I just wanted to mention there's a great book called Tending the Wild by Kay Anderson, California Native American ways of tending the wild, traditions in different parts of California. It's about a 500-page book, and it's very worthwhile in terms of, like what Richard was saying, what would be some plants and ways of regenerating this area based on how it should be, how it was thousands of years. And she covers all of that.
I just want to thank everybody for attending, and Julia Bogany and Tina and Jessa Calderon, thank you so much for being with us tonight and sharing your culture and your background and your wonderful prayers. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you all for your support. It's good to have relations in this way. It's good to get to know you. So we just appreciate it. Tehov Kopa'ami, may you all go well.
Thank you so much for having us. I appreciate it.